The late afternoon sun, usually a comforting golden embrace in Thomas's small, meticulously kept garden, felt like a cruel spotlight today. Each ray highlighted the dust motes dancing in the stale air of his study, the untouched chess set, the framed photographs that now seemed to mock him with their frozen smiles. Thomas, a man whose shoulders carried the invisible weight of countless yesterdays, sat at his worn mahogany desk, the ink of the real estate contract still damp beneath his trembling fingers. This house, a sanctuary of laughter and echoes, was no longer his. It was a tomb of unspoken words, a monument to a love lost and a connection severed. He traced the outline of a fading crayon drawing tacked to the corkboard, a stick figure father and son holding hands under a lopsided sun. "Best dad ever," it proclaimed in childish scrawl. A hollow laugh escaped him, a sound utterly devoid of mirth. Best dad? The words felt like a cruel joke, a taunt from a past he couldn't outrun. His son Noah was a ghost to him now. A presence felt only in the crushing silence of this empty home, a silence far louder than any shout. Years had built a wall between them, brick by painful brick, cemented with misunderstandings and the stubborn pride of two men who loved too much to admit they were hurting. The last argument, a storm of accusations and resentments, still echoed in his mind, leaving behind a bitter residue. Thomas stood, his joints protesting with a weary groan. He walked to the window, gazing out at the familiar street. Neighbors he'd seen grow from toddlers to adults waved, their smiles a stark contrast to the grim set of his jaw. He'd lived here for over 50 years, raised Noah here, planted the oak tree in the front yard the day Noah was born. Now it was just a house, stripped of its soul, ready to be sold off like a discarded memory. The loneliness was a physical ache, a constant companion that had settled deep in his bones since Noah had walked out, slamming not just a door, but an entire lifetime shut behind him. Today, Father's Day, only amplified the gaping void within him. Everywhere he looked, families gathered, laughter spilled from open windows, and the scent of barbecues hung heavy in the air. For Thomas, it was a day of quiet desolation, a reminder of what he had lost. He picked up a small, smooth skipping stone from his desk, rubbing its surface with a thumb. It was one of 100 such stones he and Noah had collected from their annual summer trips to the lake, a tradition that had ended abruptly when Noah left for college and never truly came back. Each stone held a memory, a splash fight, a shared secret whispered under a canopy of stars, a father's hand guiding a son's first cast. Now they were just cold, hard rocks, relics of a time when his world had been vibrant, filled with purpose. He missed the easy camaraderie, the shared jokes, the simple comfort of knowing his son was just down the hall. He missed being a father. As he closed the heavy oak door for what felt like the last time, the click of the lock resonated with a chilling finality. The solicitor had given him the keys, but they felt like shackles. He wasn't just selling a house, he was surrendering to the quiet despair that had become his shadow. His worn trench coat felt heavier than usual, a testament to the burden he carried. He walked slowly, each step a reluctant farewell to the life he once knew. The street was bustling with families, children clutching homemade cards and small gifts, their faces alight with adoration for their fathers. Thomas quickened his pace, wanting to escape the cheerful spectacle, a stark reminder of his own isolation. He just wanted to disappear into the anonymity of the city, to let the day fade into another forgotten memory. Narrador. And if you've ever felt the sting of a past regret, or the quiet ache of a missing piece in your own story, I invite you to stay with us. Sometimes, the most unexpected encounters can heal the deepest wounds. Just like Thomas, we often find what we need when we least expect it. Perhaps, by listening to his journey, you might find a reflection of your own. The city streets, usually a blur of faces, felt sharper, more imposing to Thomas as he emerged from the solicitor's office. The air, thick with the distant hum of traffic and the faint scent of exhaust, seemed to press down on him. He clutched the signed documents, their weight a cold reminder of the finality of his decision. He felt a profound emptiness, a void that no legal paper could ever fill. He'd hoped for a sense of relief, perhaps even peace, but all he found was a heavier quiet, settling in his chest. His eyes, usually sharp and observant, now scanned the passing crowd without truly seeing them, lost in the labyrinth of his own thoughts. He just wanted to be home, away from the cheerful noise of Father's Day. He was about to hail a taxi when a small, hesitant figure detached itself from the bustle. It was a girl, no older than 8 or 9, with eyes that seemed too old for her face, filled with a wisdom born of hardship. Her clothes, though clean, were worn, and her small hands clutched a stack of colorful, hand-drawn cards. Each one was a miniature burst of vibrant crayon, adorned with heartfelt, if slightly crooked messages about fathers. Best dad ever. Thank you, Dad. My hero, my dad. She stood by a lamppost, a silent sentinel, watching the families pass by, her gaze lingering on the fathers holding their children's hands. Thomas tried to avert his gaze, to quicken his step, but something in her quiet earnestness held him. She approached him, slowly, her small sneakers making no sound on the pavement. He noticed a smudge of blue paint on her cheek and a determined set to her chin. She stopped directly in front of him, her head tilted slightly, her eyes, the color of warm honey, searching his. He could see a tremor in her hands as she held out one of her cards, its bright colors a stark contrast to the grayness of his mood. "Excuse me, sir," she began, her voice a soft, reedy whisper, barely audible above the city's din. She held out a card adorned with a crudely drawn sun and 2 smiling stick figures. "Happy Father's Day." Thomas, taken aback by the directness, mumbled a polite, "Thank you," already reaching for his wallet, wanting to buy a card, anything to acknowledge her effort and make her go away. He didn't want charity, and he certainly didn't want to be reminded of his own paternal failures on this particular day. But before he could offer her money, she took a tiny, brave step closer, her eyes, wide and searching, locked onto his, and in them he saw not pity, but a profound, almost desperate curiosity. It was then that she asked the question, one that pierced through the carefully constructed walls around his heart like a sharp splinter of ice. "Can I call you Dad? Just for today? Just so I know what it's like?" The words hung in the air, a fragile echo against the backdrop of the indifferent city. Thomas froze, the blood draining from his face. "Dad!" The word, so simple, so loaded, struck him with the force of a physical blow. It was a word he hadn't heard directed at him with genuine affection in years, a word that now felt like a relic from a forgotten life. He stared at Lily. The name he would later learn was hers, her small face alight with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The question was not a plea for money or even a card sale. It was a raw, unfiltered desire for connection, a yearning for an experience she had clearly been denied. His mind reeled. He saw Noah, a chubby-cheeked toddler, reaching up for his hand, calling "Daddy!" He saw Noah, a gangly teenager, arguing, "You're not my dad." And finally, the silence, worse than any shout. And here in front of him was a complete stranger, a little girl with nothing but a stack of handmade cards and a desperate question, offering him a chance to reclaim, if only for a few hours, a title he thought he had lost forever. The irony was bitter, the pain excruciating, yet a tiny, almost imperceptible seed of something else began to stir within him, a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even a nascent, unacknowledged need. This unexpected encounter, on this particular day, felt like a bizarre twist of fate, a challenge he hadn't anticipated, and one he was utterly unprepared for. Thomas stood there frozen, the world seeming to blur around Lily's small, expectant face. "Dad!" The word echoed in the cavern of his own unspoken regrets. He saw the flicker of hope in her eyes, a hope so fragile, so vulnerable, that it cracked open something within him he thought had long since petrified. He pictured Noah at Lily's age, with his bright, mischievous eyes, and an insatiable curiosity that always led him into delightful trouble. The memory was a pang of exquisite pain, a reminder of the joy he'd allowed to slip away. He swallowed hard, the dryness in his throat mirroring the emotional desert he'd inhabited for so long. "Lunch?" he heard himself say, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. Lily's eyes widened, a hesitant smile beginning to bloom. It wasn't pity he saw in her gaze now, but a genuine, almost innocent connection. He didn't know why he said it. Perhaps it was the raw vulnerability in her question, or maybe, just maybe, it was the ghost of his own son looking back at him. It was an impulsive decision, driven by a deep, unacknowledged need for something, anything, to fill the gaping hole in his heart. They found a quiet diner a few blocks away, the kind with checkered floors and the comforting aroma of grilled cheese and coffee. Lily, normally self-sufficient and streetwise, seemed to shrink slightly in the unfamiliar warmth of the diner, but her eyes darted around, taking everything in. Thomas watched her carefully as she devoured her burger, a fierce hunger in her small frame. He learned she was 10, that she lived with her aunt, who was often busy, and that she spent her days trying to sell her cards to help out. She didn't complain, didn't ask for sympathy, just stated facts with a quiet dignity that belied her age. Her parents, she shrugged, a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor passing through her. "My mum's gone, and I never knew my dad." Each bite she took, each small, unadorned detail she shared, chipped away at Thomas's carefully constructed shell. He found himself telling her about his garden, about the oak tree he'd planted for Noah, about his passion for classical music. He even found himself describing the little lake house where he and Noah would go fishing, catching sunfish and skipping stones across the glassy water. Narrador. The scene shifts. A younger, vibrant Thomas is laughing, his arm around a teenage Noah who's holding up a small, glistening fish. The sun is setting over a tranquil lake, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Noah, his face lit with boyish pride, looks up at his father, his eyes mirroring Thomas's own warmth. "Best day ever, Dad," he exclaims, and Thomas squeezes his shoulder, a profound love radiating between them. The air is filled with easy conversation, shared dreams, and the quiet understanding that only exists between a devoted father and his son. They talk about Noah's aspirations, his dreams of traveling, of making his own mark on the world. Thomas, filled with pride, encourages him, believing in his son's boundless potential. Narrador. The memory, so vivid, brought a fresh wave of pain to Thomas. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. Lily, perceptive beyond her years, sensed his shift in mood. She reached across the table and gently touched his hand, her touch surprisingly comforting. "Did you love him very much?" she asked, her voice soft, empathetic. Thomas looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just a street kid, but a compassionate soul who understood loss. He nodded, unable to speak, the lump in his throat too big. He shared, cautiously at first, then with increasing candor, the story of his fractured relationship with Noah. The arguments, the growing distance, Noah's rebellious phase, the choices they both regretted. He spoke of the day Noah left, a final explosive argument about Noah's decision to drop out of college and pursue a path Thomas deemed reckless and irresponsible. He remembered Noah's parting words, sharp and cutting. "You never understood me, Dad. You only cared about your own expectations." The silence that followed had been deafening, a chasm opening between them that seemed impossible to bridge. Thomas confessed the stubborn pride that had kept him from reaching out, the fear of rejection, the shame of not being the father he always wanted to be. Lily listened without judgment, her gaze unwavering, absorbing every raw emotion. Narrador. The scene darkens. Thomas stands in a sparsely furnished college dorm room, his face etched with anger and disappointment. Noah, younger, his jaw set, is packing a duffel bag, avoiding his father's eyes. "This isn't what we planned, Noah." Thomas's voice is strained, bordering on a shout. Noah throws a shirt into the bag. "My life isn't your plan, Dad. I'm going to find my own way." The tension is palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket. The words exchanged are sharp, unyielding, tearing at the fabric of their relationship. The scene ends with Noah walking out, leaving Thomas alone in the empty dorm, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. Narrador. "He never came back to this house after that," Thomas finished, his voice barely a whisper. Lily took another bite of her burger, chewing slowly, her expression thoughtful. "My mom used to say that sometimes people get lost, even when they're right in front of you," she offered, her wisdom striking a chord in Thomas's aching heart. Her simple observation, devoid of complex psychology, resonated deeply. He realized that perhaps he and Noah had both been lost, stumbling in the dark, unable to find their way back to each other. The lunch, intended as a fleeting gesture, had become a profound exchange, stripping away layers of his emotional armor and leaving him feeling strangely exposed, yet also, inexplicably, a little less alone. Lily, with her innocent question and her profound understanding, was slowly, delicately, prying open the lid of his long-buried grief. The diner felt warmer now, no longer just a place to eat, but a space where unspoken stories found a voice. Thomas looked at Lily, really looked at her, and saw not just a lonely child, but a mirror reflecting his own profound need for connection. He thought of his conversation with Noah all those years ago, the one that splintered their relationship, and then he thought of Lily's simple, heartbreaking question. "Can I call you Dad? Just for today?" The contrast was stark. One word spoken in anger, the other in desperate hope. He reached for her small, paint-smudged hand across the table, a gesture so uncharacteristic for him, a man who had isolated himself for years. "Lily," he began, his voice rough with emotion, I haven't been a good father." The confession, raw and unvarnished, hung in the air. Lily didn't flinch. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently. "Maybe you just needed someone to remind you how," she whispered, her words a balm on his wounded soul. It wasn't advice. It was understanding, and it hit Thomas with the force of a revelation. He saw the path he had chosen, paved with stubborn pride and fear, and suddenly he wanted to turn back. As they walked out of the diner, the Father's Day crowds no longer felt like a mockery, but a challenge. Thomas noticed the handmade cards Lily still clutched. "Do you sell many?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not today. Most people just walk by." A wave of fierce protectiveness washed over him. This small, resilient girl, offering comfort and connection to strangers, deserved better than to be invisible. He felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to help her, to give back a fraction of the hope she had unknowingly rekindled in him. Narrador. The scent of sawdust and fresh paint fills the air. A younger Thomas is in his garage, meticulously sanding a small wooden race car. Noah, about 7, sits on a stool beside him, utterly engrossed, handing him tools. "Dad, can I help?" he asks, his eyes wide with admiration. Thomas smiles, a genuine, easy smile that rarely touched his face anymore. "Of course, son. This car won't win the derby without our team effort." They work in comfortable silence, the easy rhythm of their shared project a testament to their bond. Thomas teaches Noah how to hold the sandpaper, how to apply the paint evenly. The car isn't just a toy, it's a symbol of their connection, built with patience and love. Narrador. The memory of that simple shared moment, the joy of building something together, resonated deeply within Thomas. He looked at Lily, her hopeful face, and a new idea began to form. It was small, perhaps insignificant in the grand scheme of his life, but it felt right. "Lily," he said, his voice stronger now, infused with a newfound purpose. "How about we sell these cards together? My garden. It's quite lovely. Maybe people would stop there." Lily's eyes lit up, a brilliant spark that chased away the shadows. Back at his house, the familiar quiet now felt less oppressive. Thomas opened his garden gate and Lily gasped. It was indeed lovely. Roses in full bloom, lavender swaying gently in the breeze, a small bird bath attracting cheerful sparrows. It was a stark contrast to the barrenness of his emotional landscape. They set up a small card display on a weathered garden bench. Thomas, awkward at first, found himself smiling as Lily enthusiastically explained her creations to passers-by. He even managed to strike up a few conversations, something he hadn't done in years. Then a young couple pushing a stroller paused at their display. The man picked up a card, its message simple: "A father's love is a guiding light." His eyes welled up. "My dad, he passed last year," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Thomas, usually reserved, felt a wave of empathy. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of shared grief. Lily, sensing the moment, reached out and gently placed a small, brightly colored card in the man's hand. "It's okay to miss him," she whispered. The man looked at Thomas, then at Lily, a profound gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, his voice choked. He bought several cards, and as they walked away, Thomas saw the man slip one into his pocket. In that moment, something shifted inside Thomas. It wasn't about the sale. It was about the connection, the comfort, the unexpected ripple effect of a simple handmade card. He realized that even in brokenness, there could be healing, and in giving, there was profound receiving. This wasn't just a day with a curious girl, it was a reawakening. CTA Intermediario. And if you're finding yourself moved by Thomas's journey, remember to hit that like button. It truly helps us share these powerful stories. And consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on more tales of transformation and the unexpected connections that change lives. The small garden, once a place of solitary contemplation for Thomas, had become a vibrant hub of unexpected connection. Lily, with her unwavering optimism and her innocent wisdom, had transformed it, and him in ways he never imagined. As the afternoon waned, and the last of her handmade cards found new homes, a quiet joy settled over Thomas. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a lightness in his chest, a subtle hum of purpose. Lily, beaming, counted the few dollars she'd earned, her eyes shining with pride. "Thank you, Dad," she said, her voice soft but clear, and this time the word didn't pierce him with pain, but rather warmed him from the inside out. As dusk began to paint the sky in hues of lavender and orange, Lily prepared to leave. Thomas felt a pang of sadness, the thought of returning to his quiet, empty house suddenly unbearable. But then she turned back, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "I almost forgot," she said, pulling a folded piece of paper from her pocket. It wasn't one of her colorful cards. It was an old, slightly worn envelope, addressed in a familiar, hurried scrawl. "This was from my mom," she explained. "She always said I should hold on to it, said it might help someone one day." Thomas took the envelope, his fingers trembling as he unfolded the brittle paper. Inside there was a single, faded photograph. It was a picture of a young woman, her hair long and dark, smiling brightly, and standing beside her, a mischievous grin. On his face was a much younger Noah. His heart lurched. It was Noah, undeniable, unmistakable. Below the photo, scrawled in faint pencil, were words that stopped his breath. "To my dearest Noah, who gave me the greatest gift, our beautiful Lily. Always remember your father's love, even when it's hard to see." And beneath that, a name, Sarah. Thomas looked up, his eyes wide with shock. Then slowly, tearfully, he met Lily's gaze. "Sarah," She was your mother, he whispered,
With
his
emotion.
voice cracking. Lily nodded, her earlier smile replaced by a look of profound understanding. Yes, she said. She told me you used to be friends. Before she moved away. The pieces clicked into place with a staggering, dizzying force. Sarah, a kind, artistic young woman Noah had dated briefly in college before he left. A relationship Thomas had dismissed, forgotten, lost in the noise of their arguments. Narrador. Noah wasn't just his son, he was Lily's father. The house he had been so ready to abandon, the memories he tried to bury, now held a new, breathtaking significance. This wasn't just a random encounter on Father's Day, it was a divine intervention, a second chance born from a connection he never knew existed. Lily, his granddaughter, stood before him, a living bridge to the son he had lost, a testament to a life Noah had built, even without him. The years of regret, the crushing weight of loneliness, began to lift, replaced by a surge of overwhelming love and a fierce, burning desire to make things right. Lily's simple question, "Can I call you Dad?" just for today, had transformed into a profound, undeniable truth. He wasn't just a father by chance today, he was a grandfather by blood, by destiny. Thomas embraced Lily tightly, his tears flowing freely now, not tears of sorrow, but of profound gratitude and a reawakened sense of belonging. "My dear Lily," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "you can call me Grandpa, and you can call me that every day." Visual. Thomas and Lily, arm in arm, looking at the house. The garden gate, previously closed and unwelcoming, is now wide open. The sun, setting, casts a warm, hopeful glow over them. The sounds of family laughter from nearby houses no longer sting, but sound harmonious. Narrador. The story of Thomas and Lily is a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive in the most unexpected packages, and that love truly has a way of finding its way back. It teaches us that forgiveness, both of ourselves and others, can unlock connections we thought were lost forever. Thomas, once a man consumed by regret, found redemption not in trying to fix the past, but in embracing an unforeseen future, a future brightly illuminated by the tiny hand of his granddaughter. His journey reminds us that the title of father or grandfather isn't just given, it's earned through presence, through love, and through the courage to heal. CTA Final. The person who gave you. Life isn't always the one who taught you how to live. This Father's Day, who would you like to honor? Perhaps an unexpected mentor, a guiding friend, or someone who stepped up when no one else did. Share your stories in the comments below. Your unique experience can inspire someone else who might be looking for a sign, for a little hope. And if Thomas's story resonated with you, consider subscribing and hitting that like button to help us share more tales of profound human connection and transformation.